Hi, I'm Evie Kim Singh, editor of identityweek.net. I'm in Singapore for Identity Week Asia, and I'm joined now by Lorraine Finlay, who's the Human Rights Commissioner for the Australian Human Rights Commission. It's really great to speak to you today. Obviously, we know that human traffic can be enabled by forgeries to identity documents. Are all the key parties really engaged and committed to tackling this issue?
Well, thanks for having me here today. They are, and we're seeing some really great improvements in terms of cooperation amongst international organisations, governments, and private companies. But we need to do more because we know that human trafficking is such a critical issue, and no one country or no one company can solve it on their own. Biometrics can play a really important role in helping to, for example, ensure secure identification, but we need to make sure we're all working together in a really coordinated way to both achieve the benefits of this technology, which is helping to combat human trafficking as one example, but also protecting against some of the risks that we know are there from the human rights perspective as well.
And you mentioned there that government needs to be engaged, travel sector. Are they utilising biometrics at the border, which is one way we can identify people accurately?
Well, they are increasingly, but again, we need to do more. And so we need to do more both in terms of ensuring that this technology is introduced in areas where it can be incredibly useful for combating human trafficking. But we also need to do more to make sure there are the proper guardrails around the technology so that some of the risks that we know exist, we can protect against them right from the very beginning rather than waiting until harm is caused at the other end.
And you've got technology, we've still got border control officers as well. They're important for checking ID documents and detecting fraud as well. Are they working together really, collaboratively, to solve this issue?
Well, they need to be, but one of the real challenges is integrating the technology and the humans so that they can work seamlessly together. And that's really important because this technology is only as good as the humans that operate it and implement it. And so what we need are both officers, frontline officers who are trained in the technology to understand how to best use its capabilities effectively, but also who are trained to understand its limitations and its weaknesses, because there are times when machine judgment will be incredibly efficient and accurate, but there are times when human judgment is really important, particularly in some of those nuanced or complex cases, and we need to have frontline officers that understand and engage with the technology, but don't rely on it to such a point that they're not also making the contribution that we need them to make with their own expertise.
And do we have enough of those officers? Do we need to recruit more, really?
Well, one of the things that we hope technology can do is actually create efficiencies in terms of the number of officers that you need, but we do need more, and particularly when you're talking about the scalability and rolling out of this technology, that shouldn't come at the expense of ensuring you have enough people on the front line to actually make sure the jobs are done effectively, fairly, and safely. But we also, again, need to invest in training those people to make sure that they're able to use the most up-to-date technology, they're able to harness its abilities and its benefits, but they're able to also exercise their own judgment to ensure that we don't have accountability gaps.
And what contribution does the Commission make to migration policy, the landscape as a whole? Where does policy need to go with this?
So the Australian Human Rights Commission is Australia's A-status national human rights institution, which means that we're not a body that makes or sets government policy or that delivers frontline services in terms of migration policy. What we do is we advise the Australian government and its agencies, we make recommendations, and we also monitor the effectiveness of Australian government policy to ensure, again, that things like biometric technology are rolled out in a way that harnesses those benefits in terms of things like combating human trafficking, but we protect against some of the human rights risks that we see in terms of things like risk to privacy and risks of discrimination through things like algorithmic biases. So the Commission has a really important role in promoting and protecting human rights, but we don't deliver government policy in and of itself.
In these fraudulent documents, we're seeing the use of morphed photography. How long will it be until those techniques make it impossible to distinguish real documents from fake ones?
Well, I hope we never reach a point where we can't distinguish real documents from fake documents. But what you've raised is a really important point, because we know that this technology can be used to enhance border security. We also know that this technology in the wrong hands can be used by criminals to try and enhance their illegal activities. And we know that they're constantly evolving the methods that they're using and becoming more and more sophisticated in the way that they're using technology. So we need to make sure that we're doing exactly the same, that we're constantly evolving and developing and looking at ways of better using technology to combat those types of things. And that means two things. It means, number one, being really proactive in terms of thinking through the beneficial uses of technology, and particularly how we can use it to combat illegal usage. But secondly, it's again investing in the human side of things and making sure that we're properly training people to be able to use this technology to eradicate those types of uses that criminal networks might try to facilitate.
Thank you so much, Lane, for joining me on this interview. Thank you
Thanks so much.